In a cinematic universe where some of the mightiest creatures to ever shake and shadow the earth thrive, what might be the greatest threats may just so happen to dwell beneath the water's surface. Today on Koji Center, we break down the return of two of the most terrifying apex predators in the franchise for Jurassic World Rebirth, the Spinosaurus and Mosasaurus, now seen in a way they have never been before, and investigate the real biology behind the deadliest partnership we've seen in the franchise, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. There are several possible reasons these two aquatic apex predators look different than the version we saw in previous movies. So far, it seems that the setting of Jurassic World Rebirth involves an island near Bermuda that was the test bed for the genetic operations done back in the 1980s. Presumably, InGen sequenced and manufactured the prehistoric DNA here before shipping the completed genomes for production at Isla Sorna, to then be showcased off at Jurassic Park. So, it is possible that at least some of the animals we see in the new movie are alpha bills, the prototype to what came later. These animals were deemed either too dangerous for the park, or just not proper looking for park attraction standards. So they were left behind in the island that we will visit in Jurassic World Rebirth. This includes the Spinosaurus and Mosasaur that we will be discussing today. An alternate scenario is that these are both relative newcomers who migrated to the islands after the events of Jurassic World Dominion. Remember, the marketing for the new movie did imply that a lot of the Earth's biomes were no longer suitable for dinosaurs long term. So some species retreated to the equatorial belt, right where this newly introduced island would be. In either scenario, we are dealing with creatures from a different generation of development to what we saw in 2001 and the 2010s. Let's start our analysis with the Spinosaurus, the object of admiration by its own fans and consternation by T-Rex fans since 2001. The Spinosaurus came stomping onto the screen and went from an obscure dinosaur only seen in ensemble outings like Warpath, Jurassic Park, and Toy Lines to become the title icon for the franchise until Jurassic World. Based on very few clips revealed so far during the creation of this episode, these animals seem to be within the 12 to 15 meter range. Around the same size of the Spinosaurus seen in Jurassic Park 3, with the potential of it being larger than its JP3 counterparts. Their return in the 7th outing, however, reveals that the Supreme Sailback isn't alone this time. Sporting a tanned color scheme with dark stripes, which differ between the three individuals seen, the new Spinosaurus is seemingly a halfway point between the monstrous alligator-like baryonyx design we first saw in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and the more modern understanding of what a real-life African apex predator looked like. With a wrinkled crocodilian-like face stretched over the distinctive kinked jaws of the real thing, these three Spinosaurus look a bit different than the individual we saw on Site B and later Manticorp Island. The more paleo-accurate Spinosaurus has a shorter but stockier body with limbs even more optimized for swimming. JP3 Spino was plenty adept in the water as is, but this new trio of Spinosaurus are able to keep up with aquatic predators at sea. Other differences include a larger sailfish-like fin and a paddle-shaped tail that further help with swimming and maneuvering in the water. More pronounced talons on the thumbs, and the blinking crests in front of the eyes being switched for a smaller crest in the middle of the head. One thing you'll likely notice in these animals is the shortening of the hind legs, like the paleo-accurate Spino. These hind legs were short, but relatively thicker than you might think. This not only provided the Spinos with more mass, but also lowered their center of gravity. This Spino will likely have better balance on land. Still, the tendencies for these sailbacks to not like humans certainly seem strong, with the trio here showing the same tendency to go after boats like their distant cousin did. The reason as to why they do this will be discussed later when we talk about their accomplice. Mosasaurus, estimated length 32 to 45 meters. At possibly around or a little less than 3 times the length of their cohort, this new Mosasaurus is at least as huge as the one we saw in Isla Nublar's lagoon. These gigantic sea reptiles were first intended to show up in an early version of Jurassic Park 3, so it's perhaps fitting that the brand new incarnation accompanies the return of that film's star. Only now this accompaniment is far more literal. The new Mosasaurus, apart from being as large as the old Mosa seen in the prior trilogy, features another paleo-accuracy overhaul like the Spinosaurus got. Some differences do still exist, such as the lack of forked tongue and the tail fin being somewhat smaller than the real thing likely had. But this is much more closer to reality than the Indominus Slayer. Sporting a more streamlined body and ditching a lot of the crocodile influence, this new Mosasaurus has a different color scheme with a greater degree of counter shading. This is the same color palette seen on submarine mammals and many sharks, where the upper half of the body is a darker color to blend in with the depth below, whilst the underbelly is lighter. These changes, along with larger tail flukes, allow this Mosasaurus to swim through the water with a lot less resistance and make a lot less noise than its counterpart from Isla Nublar. So, that said, this sea-going colossus might well be the most powerful carnivore yet seen in the franchise. This new Mosasaurus also exhibits a very different temperament to the one from Jurassic World, being simultaneously just as aggressive towards humans, but also curiously cooperative with another apex predator at sea. Another big reveal that is arguably on par with the reveal of the D-Rex we discussed in a prior video, the beasts of Rebirth have subverted an all-too-common trope of when a theropod gets near a large body of water. Instead of attacking the dinosaur, the giant sea monster instead works with them. This might initially seem like a fantastical addition, on par with frilled spinning Dilophosaurus or giant scaly raptors. But believe it or not, there are aspects in nature today that do resemble this kind of partnership. Being an apex predator isn't easy, and a fight avoided is a fight survived. With the Spinosaurus in this new film being a lot more maneuverable and agile in the water, attacking one of them might be a lot more trouble than it's worth. The Mosasaurus certainly could kill one of the theropods if they battled it out, but why bother getting a meal that could wind up being nimble enough to start biting and clawing you up, especially with other, easier big prey out there? And partnerships between large apex predators and comparatively small carnivores happen to this very day. One of the most fascinating examples involving a modern-day dinosaur is the relationship between wolves and ravens. These birds have been observed bonding with and cooperating alongside wolves. Note that this is a relationship between a predator and a scavenger. The scavenging birds feast off the canine's kills, hang around each other, and the birds will even play with the pack members and their pups. The wolves, meanwhile, get literal eyes in the sky and know to follow the ravens for where the food, alive or dead, might be, and use the birds as an early warning system for threats like rival predators. When a wolf pup grows up and wanders on its own, the ravens that grew up playing with it will follow the lone wolf. The symbiotic relationship between these two species will give them an edge that no other lone animal in this biome has.
They're helping the mosasaur defend territory, stalk, hunt.
Well, isn't that interesting? Another fun example is the symbiosis between the multi-hundred-pound Nile crocodile and the unexpected dinosaur ally of their own. The dickup bird might look unassuming, but it has a scrappy enough temper to square up with threats many times its weight. And if it needs backup, crocodiles will respond to the bird's alarm calls and make an entrance. What does the croc get out of this? Not only is the bird much more active and has better eyesight, but it can respond to threats quicker. This is especially helpful when a mother croc is making a nest, which she even allows the dickups to lay their own eggs next to for mutual protection. So, what do the Spinosaurus and Mosasaurus do to help each other out? The Spinosaurus are big and powerful apex predators in their own right, but they aren't as massive or as built to handle the ocean as the giant lizard. Having the Mosasaurus to call on for backup could help out a lot in bringing down huge marine game like whales, as well as fending off incursions by one of the most dangerous apex predators in the modern Jurassic world. One that both carnivores might be smart enough to consider a threat due to their big, noisy presence: humans. And given the previous Spino's tendency to already gun for boats, any help counts. Remember how the trailer emphasized nobody is dumb enough to go where we're going. Well, this might be the answer to why so few boats would survive a cruise by this specific patch of ocean. The Mosasaurus, meanwhile, could be using the sailbacks as an extra set of sensors and eyes. This new Mosa has a lot of benefits, but still lacks a forked tongue like its ancient ancestor, meaning a reduced capacity to field its Jacobson's organ. Special adaptations like the forked tongue seen in monitors and snakes help to pinpoint direction and distance to a target. And if the mosa is also aggressive towards humans, having a trio of Spinosaurus with acute vision can help point it in the right direction. Having agile and amphibious spinos might also help in driving potential targets into deeper waters, such as herding land-bound dinosaurs into the waters where death awaits. Mosasaurs attacking land animals was a method of hunting that the Mosasaurus may have resorted to while it was locked inside the lagoon between the events of 2015 and 2018. So it isn't too hard to imagine this mosa using the same methodology here, using the spinos as aids. The way these two animals would have met and begun to cooperate could be one of many. The simplest route for these four to get along would have been an encounter at a younger age, whether they began sharing the same territory upon release into the wild or hatched together, growing up and looking out for each other as a pack as they grew to maturity. The other, more difficult method to get along would require both of these in-universe reptiles to be exceptionally intelligent, perhaps more so than their real-life counterparts, realizing that a conflict between the two entities is not worth their while, helping each other from a distance with leftover kills, slowly building trust amongst each other, enough to one day, after a long time, turn tolerance into an alliance. There is another element that is often overlooked that may explain another reason why these two cooperate so well. Remember Dr. Henry Loomis's comment about the Spinos protecting the territory, stalking and hunting rivals. This implies a somewhat sophisticated method of communication between these two different species. Either these exceptionally smart animals learn to understand each other's different calls and what they mean, or whoever cooked up these animals in the genetics lab used a common gene contributor when creating these two. Similar to how it's speculated that InGen's mosa was part whale, given that it was seen to be a bit too friendly to these cetaceans at the end of Jurassic World Dominion. It's not far-fetched in this cinematic universe that these two animals could share a common set of genes in their genetic makeup, further bolstering their collaborative behavior. The best example of this is how the Indominus Rex was able to communicate with the raptors in Jurassic World and were perhaps the most dangerous pack in the previous trilogy. Knowing this, we can expect the Spino-Mosa pack to work together and show complex hunting tactics seen in modern-day crocodiles and some cetaceans, bringing forth the most dangerous and powerful symbiotic relationship in this franchise.